Hey guys, it's a Link 2 here, and a bit of a special one. We're just going to take a quick look at Infernal. I played a bunch of them to get used to it. There's so many changes. There's some insane ones, obvious ones, things that have been posted. I've seen people like really talking within the Discord forums about the big changes. Again, the vast majority of it is aimed at the campaign, and that's where a lot of the stuff comes from. Their units look way cooler, they look way better. It's just a completely different deal, and it's awesome. I don't want to show off like all the amazing units because there's a lot of better ways to do it than a video telling you how to hotkey your stuff. But we're gonna keep it a little bit short here on Inferno, just because we've talked about a lot of different things, and yeah, I don't want to show everything because honestly, it's really cool. Now, if you've seen my Vanguard video, like first thing I do is control F2. I'll set my camera location. I'm gonna set my next camera location hotkey, and I'm gonna set one over here. And finally, I'm gonna set one. I'm gonna set one over here on this map. And the reason for that is I just like to be able to go F2, F3, F4, and just move around the map quickly. I think within Stormgate, that's one of the most important things you can basically do within the game. And all I need to do now is just kind of get everything set up. So what I'm going to do is build a couple shrines. I'm going to build one actually over here. And once we hit 350, then we'll kind of go over and explain like what happened with Inferno and like what the big changes are, as well as show you how to hotkey everything up, right? So all I need to do now is I'm just going to send a couple guys over there just so I have stuff going, and we're going to send them over here. One thing I do want to point out is a lot of the workers are quite slow, which is interesting, but the other units are so fast, and it's going to be a little bit crazy. So we'll see how people are able to handle that. And alright, so while like my guys are just doing their thing and whatever, we're just going to quickly open up our hotkeys. We're going to go into the Infernals. And again, this is your quick macro. With Infernal, like really important to use it. And I'm just going to kind of go through like how I like to bind everything, because this is just a fresh, I reset everything, and kind of talk about things with the units and stuff that you might need to consider when you're doing all your binds, right? So for me, the first thing is with a shrine, like because the unit gets consumed, it feels a little hatchery to me. So like I am going to do the hatchery, but you go, for me it's assign all and then H. So if you're not familiar with Stormgate, the assign all key didn't used to work, but now it does. And so even if you have like a meat farm here, it's a really good idea to use assign all, because there's campaign stuff, there's co-op, although co-op's a little bit behind this patch, but now you can finally assign everything the way you want it. And even if there's a hotkey you like, just assign all, stop. S for your farm. This one is the Iranian Bolt, and we are going to leave that on D, F, G. That's all fine for me, actually. This is your Iron Vault, and your Iron Vault is your kind of early game units. Eventually you get to your Concave, which is your more ranged, squishier units for Infernal, and your Twilight, your Spire is your, the hint is it's Spire, so that's what gets your flying units out, right? So however you would normally kind of like hotkey this, for me, honestly, it's fine. I'm going to move the Spire over to R. That's just the more comfortable one for me. But D and F for Conclave and the Iron Vault's fine. I'm totally okay with the Shrine. You know what? Yeah, I'm fine with the Shrine being on H. This Shredstone is kind of like a pylon, kind of like a creep tumor, kind of like a, I don't know, a tower in Warcraft. It's just it's what increases your shroud, right? And they're much more effective now than before, and you need to build more of them now, right? So for me, I'm going to put it on A, but it gives a big area of shroud, and shroud is how you can build faster now. You can expand it with these. It feels really good to kind of push it out, whereas before it was almost impossible, and a lot of Infernal players just weren't using it, but now it feels really good, and I'll kind of demonstrate that when we get back into the game. Hellforge is just your basic upgrade building. So for me, I'm going to throw it on E, which sounds weird, but that's just You know what? Health Forge can go on H. Alright, sorry. H? Yeah, that's fine. Ritual Chamber, I'm just going to slide that over from H to G. And then finally, the Shadow Cleft is kind of the last thing you get, so it's a big kind of text structure deal. B is not for me, but just slide it over to C, right? That should be fine. So if you notice, every single time I was doing that, I was using assign all. I'm just picking them because it's like, hey, like, this feels good to me, right? This is what it reminds me of. And when you link stuff together like that in your head, you can remember them much easier, right? Even if their hotkeys are like stupid, like these are honestly not great, but for me, it's effective, right? Also, having two things on H is dumb, right? Probably not the greatest idea. So, let's go. You can go Q. I'll put shrines on Q and we'll be fine. With imps, I'm going to move them over to Q. That's typically my worker. Building Hotkey. You can kind of see a little bit of the new brute there. For brutes, for me, I've always like. There's always kind of been a D unit because they're that heavy like melee unit. I know there's Magmadons or Magmadon, yeah, Magmadons to stomp, and they're awesome. But for me, they're not a D, they're an E. Hellborn is kind of your long-range CG unit. It does a lot of damage to armor. It's pretty good, but I don't know what a good description of it would be. Maybe an Immortal, something like that, if you're used to that in StarCraft. It's that kind of feel of a unit, right? The Magmadon is just its own thing. It's awesome. I'll show you one of those when we get back in the game if you're not familiar, but they're really, really cool. The Gaunt just got a massive rework as well. Much more of a ranged unit now. Looks way cooler. To me, I usually put those on A. So Hexen is a kind of a spellcaster unit, which means I'm not going to build it and play with it, but hey, you know, it's out there. Sorry, I'm just making fun of myself here. You know what? X is fine for that. You know what? I'm going to go Weaver. This is really weird, but for me, Weaver on X, and then, you know what? I'm putting Weaver on B because it's kind of a bigger unit, and then I'll leave that on C. There's just like different ways that I've just, my memory works with games, so put stuff on what feels good for you, right? And then if it doesn't work, you know, go back and change it. I will give you the like full like actual StarCraft 2 based hotkeys, and I will give you MOBA based hotkeys and kind of spellcaster stuff, so you'll have a bunch of different options to start out with, and you can be in a good place to start, but I highly recommend just going through and doing all this, okay? Shadow Flyers, they're interesting. They're not quite full Scourge, but they're pretty close, right? So I will put that on the Scourge hotkey. Harbinger to me is a dropship, so that goes on D. They're actually pretty cool dropship, but they have to land. But the way they do it is really interesting, so if you never used those. And we are going to put that bad boy. The Spriggans have changed quite a bit, so for me, I'm going to put the Spriggans over on E. There's a reason for that. It's kind of like how I normally would use that particular unit. I'm going to highlight it more. I'm not going to show you the Flay Dragon update, but it is like 10 out of 10. Looks awesome. Finally, we need to go down to the upgrades. Like I said before, I'm an E, R, T, Y type of person for my stuff. I just like to string my upgrades along. Normally, there's not that many upgrades in a row for a lot of games, so typically it works well, but here it's fine too. And again, like the only reason I do this is I like to keep my upgrades away from Q, A, S. Like any high action part of my keyboard is like, I don't want these over there, right? Like I really want to keep it pretty low key as much as possible, and it just makes it easier to play over the long term. So I'm going to hit accept here.